Welcome to your D122W1 to our long-awaited EX3 exercise, Ultraclean. We always have a lot of fun with this one, and it introduces a lot of effects like pop dots and bevel and emboss and strokes and all kinds of things, and even taking our vector artwork and bringing it into Photoshop, or in our case, Photo P, to add all the effects. We're going to go from Figma to Photo P, where in the past we went from Illustrator to Photoshop, but we'll still be able to do all the same things that we did there. And let's take a look at some samples. Before we jump into things, let's just look at what we're going to be doing. So in Documents and Resources, Unit 4, Handouts, I have 4 samples here. So let's just take a look at them first. And PDFs, and they're going to be a little bigger. I'll zoom out a little bit, and then I'll zoom in as we need. And again, this is just a kind of make-believe package design for something called Ultraclean. And it says it's clean, and then their other tagline is shockingly clean, and it's new with super cleaning crystals. And I always kind of add stuff like that. And then we just added in some shirts and dresses and underwear and all different kinds of stuff. And we're also going to have the weight down at the bottom, and we're going to have some pop dots, even multiple pop dots, even a gradient, radial gradient in the back, and we're going to use these real bright kind of cleaning colors like orange and blue, and we're going to use all kinds of cool stuff here like shadows. Up here we have multiple strokes. Here we have orange text with white stroke and a drop shadow. Here we have blue text with white strokes and a drop shadow, and we have a starburst, which we're going to do in Figma, and that has a drop shadow. And then there's this new text over it, which has a glow. It has a white glow over it. And then in the middle here, we have Ultraclean. Now there's different ways we've done this in the past, but it has blue text with a bevel and emboss. You can see it has a little highlight and a little shadow on it to make it look a little puffy. That's a bevel and emboss. You could even put texture on there. And it has a white outline. Well, actually before that, it has an orange outline, a stroke going around it. And then it has a white stroke outside of that, which we can all do in Photo P, and we have a drop shadow on it to make it pop from the background a little more. And this one has white text with a dark blue stroke and a light blue stroke on it, and no drop shadows there. And then finally we have these things called pop dots, where they use like a color halftone kind of effect, and we actually use a channel just like we did in that bridge exercise to kind of fill these dots. It's going to be a channel with big white dots, and we're just going to fill it. And just like a stencil, we're going to put it any color you want. And we're going to use layer effects, so we could change colors very easily. If I wanted to go into this file and change that color, any color in here, we could do it very easily with our layer effects. So the colors we start off with don't have to be the ones we finish with. And then we throw in some clothes here. We may have to silhouette some of this stuff or put layer masks on it. You may find transparent graphics that you could just grab and throw in here. And again, it's just stuff that we throw in here. So this is just one sample. So let's look at some others that we've done in the past. Here's sample 2. This one is, that's really effing clean. And it's also, it's clean. I don't think that's really the tagline, but this one is interesting. If I zoom in a little bit, it has pop dots, circular pop dots in the background, but then it also has pop dots that go around the words. And how do you do that? Well, you just make a selection. Instead of a circular selection, you make a selection that's the same as the text and blur it, and then you turn it into pop dots. So we can do that as well, and I'll show you how to do that as well. We also have a starburst. This one just says new, but you see we have drop shadows, drop shadows. This tagline with this brush script here has red text, white stroke, and drop shadow. This has, like the other one, it looks like it has the bevel and emboss in blue, it has orange stroke, it has white stroke, and then it has shadow beneath it. And this just has blue stroke, white, nothing else. And then just different stuff in here, different shirts. And again, to try and make it all work together, try to find clothes that kind of match with the colors, or use things that contrast. We're using blue and white, which kind of contrasts with the orange. So it really pops with the orange. You know, this thing could be yellow, could be whatever. But again, this is an exercise we do to practice for our package design project. So this is an exercise that we're going to do a lot of practice things on it, so we could kind of have fun with it, just like we did with the bridge and all that stuff before we did the book cover. And let's look at another sample. Here's sample 3. And this one is different because it has a blue background. And again, it has different sets of pop dots. It has light blue pop dots on a darker blue background. Just repeating things here in lighter kind of opacities. even cleaner than before, new and improved. It's clean. This one has blue outline and a white outline or white stroke and a drop shadow. This one doesn't have any bevel and emboss. This one is orange with a blue stroke and then a white stroke and then a drop shadow and then pop dots and then more pop dots in the back. So you could really have fun with pop dots. And this, the tagline, they didn't like that really effing clean. So this one is just really, really clean. That made it by the censors. They couldn't have effing clean on a box. And this one's blue, so it's a little different. It has some yellow in here that really pops and just has a different look than the other one. This yellow pops up here. You have a white stroke on new and improved. We have a glow on the starburst, and that's about it. So that's another example. Let's look at the last sample. This one is, I think, like the other one, except here we have new and improved. It has kind of an aqua color with a white stroke. We have a starburst that looks like it has a gradient on it, like a yellow to white gradient. It has a drop shadow on it. Shirt over there. Here we have the bevel and emboss, very light, not a real thick bevel and emboss. You can adjust the thickness of it or the depth. This has an orange stroke and then white and has a drop shadow in the background. And keep in mind, you can't put multiple shadows on multiple strokes. You can only put it on the last thing that you do, but you can actually make a selection and fill it and make another shape that you can actually do to, if you wanted multiple shadows, like if you wanted shadows under the orange and over there. Now that's getting a little carried away with shadows, but I think I have that on the One Effects example, so if you're wondering what that is. Here we have white text, blue stroke, drop shadow. Here the pop dots were actually given a bevel and emboss style to it, so that has effect on it, so that it's filled with blue but it has bevel and emboss on it to really make them come out. I don't know if that's a great look, but it's a look. And then there's big pop dots in the background, so you could just duplicate our pop dots layers, scale them, turn down the opacity, change the color, add effects, all kinds of cool stuff. And notice we're kind of cropping things off here. Let me zoom out a little so you can see the layout a little better. Notice how we're using the layout and kind of making it very circular. Your eye kind of moves around here. So that's going to be part of it. We want to incorporate design into here. It's not going to be all effects. And here we have a basket of clothes, socks. Notice how they're cropped and they move your eye around, and you get a little bit of color in here. It's picking up the yellow from over there. It's getting a little splash of red. We also have blue. So more things that we're doing here. And again, check out those samples, check out what you like. If you have any questions about anything or how to do it, I'm going to try and do as many as I can when I do mine using Figma and Photo P. And again, I never did it with Photo P yet, so this will be the first time. Let me just go over some of the instructions here. There's the Ultraclean instructions, and this is just very basic. And I had the Photoshop one, and it doesn't have a lot of details other than a sample here. It just shows you how to get started this semester of what you're going to do with Figma. So you're going to open a shared Figma file, and I'm going to have videos for all that. So, but if you like reading about it, here it is. So this is kind of the basic overview. Doesn't go into all the details, but just to point out, we are going to be making it in Figma first. Now, I'm giving you a Figma file to start, so you don't have to start the Figma file from scratch. You're going to open a shared link of a Figma file, add a little bit to it, add a starburst, and then you're going to take it into Photoshop. So that's just kind of getting you started on this one, just to get used to the steps. And you're just going to work on kind of this part, really. In Figma, and then take it into Photo P and then start working on all that other stuff. I also put here, save the PSD file to your local computer, or you can connect it to Google Drive. They could set it up so you can connect it to Google Drive, to OneDrive, to Dropbox, to all kinds of things. So if you're on a Chromebook or something and you can't save it to your local computer, there's always options with Photo P. So that's really nice. And I just started using Photo P on my phone. I tried it out and it actually works pretty good. You can open up things from your photo library. So Photo P is pretty cool, especially that it's free. And again, all this stuff it just lists here: color overlays, multiple strokes, drop shadows, and then pop dots is a separate handout because it is a little detailed. Doing the pop dots, it's a lot of invert this and do that. It's kind of, working with channels is always a little bit of a challenge. So those are the basic instructions. Here's the pop dots instructions. And you can see that there's 15 steps. It's not that easy to make pop dots. Basically what we're doing, if you remember working with the channels in that bridge exercise, is we're going to make an additional channel, and we're just going to put a circle there, and then we're going to blur it, and then we're going to run this halftone filter on it, and it'll look something like that. And we have to do a lot of inversion so that the dots are white. Because remember, when we use a fill, it's, you know, it's like a mask. You're going to be filling what's white. So you don't want the dots to be the inside part. You want the dots to be the circular part. So that's why there's some steps here where you have to invert. You have to invert it once, and then you have to invert it again. So that's why I have these steps here. So normally I don't make a big deal about you following the PDF, but on this one, you're going to follow the PDF, and so will I. When I do the video, I'll have to watch this because I don't always know it by heart. It was a lot of trial and by error when I first did it with the pop dots, but I'll go over a lot of stuff. So there'll be a lot of videos for this and all kinds of stuff, but a lot of cool effects in Photo P, and they're all the same as Photoshop as well. So it's a lot of Photoshop stuff we're doing early on, and then we'll get into more vector stuff. But this is kind of going from vector to raster so that we could do all these cool effects, because we can't do all these cool effects in Figma, or in Illustrator can you do it either. A lot of this stuff is kind of Photoshop stuff. So that's why we're kind of going from vector for our layout and then into raster. Now, if we need the vector artwork, we can always incorporate that all back into Figma. There's even a way you can turn off any raster stuff and put the vector stuff on top of it. But we won't get into that now, but this is the pop dots handout. Now, the last handout I have here, and I didn't update it, it still has Photoshop stuff on it, but it really just points out what stuff is. You know, here's a text layer, and there's a stroke, which is white, and there's a color overlay, which made it red. And then there's the starburst, which has a color overlay. It was originally yellow, but we made it green, and then we even have a stroke that makes it white, and it's an inner stroke. You can tell by the way here, the way it is here with the drop shadow, it's an inner stroke, it's inside the shape. And then there's also drop shadow. So that's this stuff here. Then there's this thing. Now this one, we don't have to do it that detailed, but this one actually has a gradient overlay, a linear gradient. So it goes from light blue to dark blue. That's a gradient overlay, which we can actually do on our background, and I'll go over how to do that, but it can be a little tricky. And it has a stroke, has a bevel and emboss, and then we actually made a separate shape with a bevel and emboss. That's this one. You could detach it as a separate shape, and then that one has a bevel and emboss on it, and that one has a shadow. Now you can't do this all on one piece of text. That's why this orange thing is separate, and I think we might have even broken it out from something there because it's kind of its outer line. Now you could just command click or control click and get a dotted line of text and then make it bigger, expand it, and then fill it and put it on its own layer, and then suddenly you have this shape that you can put an orange color on it, put a bevel and emboss, put a drop shadow, all that. So that's what that has there. And moving down, again, this is just a, you know, color overlay. It looks like it has a bevel and embossed, a very light one. It's not actually a drop shadow. And it has a drop shadow under the blue. It has a blue stroke. And then here's the two pop dots. And you could keep making duplicate layers. You could have one pop dot layer and have another pop dot layer. One real big, have it be cropped off with light color, and then maybe more centralized one here. I think that's that on this handout, and those are the handouts. So a lot of stuff to look at before you even get started. And then we're going to get started in Figma, open the shared link in Figma, and then kind of go from there. So that's what I'm going to do next. So I'm not even going to continue this video. This will be part one, kind of the overview of all this stuff. So make sure you check out this stuff first. And what I'm going to do in the next video is start going through these instructions, Ultraclean instructions here. I'll even open it up so I could follow it a little bit, and then if I need to make changes, I'll make changes to it. But I'm going to be following these and getting started in Figma. Now, also, I want to point out that when you get started in Figma, I have a shared file. So you're going to go to coursework. You're going to go down to Unit 4. Now, I have this open, even though I don't have the videos done, and there's going to be a shared link. You could go here, or you could go into the assignment, and you're going to click on this link. So I'm going to do this in the next video. So wait, I'm not going to do it right now. Maybe I should click on it and then have the video fade out. It'd be like a teaser of what's going to happen. So I'm going to click on it, and this will be the teaser. See you in part 2.